You're listening to the Enneagram and Marriage podcast.
I'm your host, Christa Harden, and I'm so glad you showed up for our relationship chat today, as well as for you and your people. We're all about living intentionally here so you can experience joy and balance in your relationships once again or for the very first time. Be sure you hang with us on our social media platforms, and if you like research like I do, make sure you check out our website at enneagramandmarriage.com for our weekly newsletter, freebies, and so much more, as well as at Instagram and Facebook. We have so many goodies to share with you. Let's dive right in together. Hello, friends. I'm so happy to have you on the journey today for this special episode. You knew it was coming, the AI affair, when AI enters your marriage. Guys, AI is here. It is the often silent third party in marriages, not necessarily always silent, actually, but the space in marriages that we never saw coming. And yet some of you actually are laughing right now saying, yes, Christa, I'm a future thinker. I'm a deep thinker. I saw this coming and here we are. So either way, congratulate yourself if that's you. The rest of us are sort of staring dumbfounded at what in the world's happening. Every media news outlet is going wild talking about AI right now. And I've tried to do some research for us over the past few weeks and really wanted to let AI settle in a bit before I started to talk about it. But it's here. And I think I'm even a little overdue on this episode. I've been planning for a few weeks. I've done some research on my Instagram community, and a lot of my clients use AI. And I have a lot of tips for you today about how you can both be cautious about AI as well as use it well. I want to remind you first and foremost, we are all still learning together. So we have Karen Howe's beautiful research all over right now with her new book on AI to just at large help us to note the footprint we're using, help us to remember that we use a lot more of our world's resources when we're using AI, helping us to also remember that often people in the AI creation world don't represent our same moral values, and the values they're trying to promote are often business values for them making money, and sadly, sometimes exploiting people in countries that need water. I heard her talking about Uruguay, Chile, and other spaces that they're building a lot of media centers to house all of this AI, and maybe some will be popping up near us soon too. So I just want to encourage all of us to do our diligence around how we use AI, being thoughtful about it. Somebody even said to me, saying please and thank you to AI costs a lot of money. And of course, there's going to be so many opinions like, well, podcasts cost money and Google searches cost money and all of the things. So I don't want anyone to feel shame over this episode. Like if they have been having fun using AI, I just want to shed some light on how we can use AI well in our marriages, but also how not to use AI in our marriages. And thank you for those who answered me on Instagram to help me to get that picture. Plus, my clients have been so honest and honoring to talk with me about how they're using AI. I'll talk a little bit about how Wes and I are using it in this short episode, and just getting you guys rolling and thinking just so that we can honor the work we should perhaps do with AI. And I think that I've paused for so long to give any an opinion because I think that there's a lot of voices out there already talking about AI who know more about it than me. But I think the space of marriage in AI is something that not many people are talking about, but yet so many people are using that it is the right time for me to share. And I'm so grateful to be able to do that today with you. Thank you so much for being here midweek. I know you're busy. I know you're tired. I'm so glad you pressed play. It will be worth it because I'm going to give you some good tips. And I wanted to let you know that before we do that, keep in mind the Ennea Summit's coming up. You know, we've been talking about this. This is on my favorite topic of instincts and subtypes. And often in your marriage, you know your type, but you don't know if you're more self-preserving or one-to-one or sexual, or you don't know if you are in that space of social. And that matters a lot as to how you move through life in your marriage. And it really can be just as big as type. So that's why I love that the conference is free. You can also get the deeper dive pass if you like. Now, it's in the show notes if you want to go that route. Also, if you just want a space to talk and chat each month with us at Enneagram and Marriage, a lot of people that are listeners cannot afford services services, or even if you can't afford services, you're just a group person and you really like learning in community. And maybe you heard Monday's episode about loneliness. And I want to let you know, every month we meet once a month to just have community, to talk things out. And this month we're talking about Enneagram wings. You can also pick part of that up on our deep dive podcast on Apple. But the other part of it, the live part where we're really negotiating stories and really working through depths, comes through our monthly meeting for the collective. So that is there. If you are just looking for community, we would love to have you. And that's, like I said, in the show notes. And then last but not least, I want to let you know that if you are looking for a good book on Enneagram and marriage, don't forget to pick up my book, The Enneagram in Marriage, Your Guide to Thriving Together in Your Unique Pairing. It's so much fun to go through our best, our worst, our shadows, finding our light again and again and again. If you already have the book, don't forget to go through it. If you have the book but don't have the hidden chapter, make sure you hit up our contact page and tell us you need that, or you can hit us up for coaching, counseling, all the services this summer. And guys, guess what? Humans are not replaceable. Humans needing other humans, we've tried it. So don't forget that. Let's just start right there with the wonderful reminder of all of John Bowlby's attachment studies and many other researchers who have come and gone since then. If you've ever read Attached or the Julie Manano work, you know we need our secure attachment. You know so much that we need that. Or Sue Johnson's work on emotionally focused therapy, and you can't bypass that. So that is going to be just a good overarching reminder that you need other humans in your lives. However you get that this summer, I hope you make some great human connections. Even if you tend to be a little self-pres and you just also need your own time, make sure you allow yourself the social time too. So really cool to start this episode off with an episode that I recently heard. I love the Diary of a CEO podcast. My husband loves it too. My daughter Hannah loves it too. So there's 3 of us who independently found this podcast and love it. You probably do too, or you will soon if you haven't already seen that podcast or listened to it. But they were actually talking as I was already formulating this episode just today. So I'm throwing this in a little bit quickly. But Simon Sinek was on the show talking about how if you're having an argument with your partner or your spouse, instead of working it through, one of you turns to ChatGPT for relationship advice, you're not going to like that as much. He talked about how he wanted real conflict, not AI smooth solutions, and that if his partner said, hey, I'm not going to do my emotional work, I'm just going to read AI responses for everything you write me, then he wouldn't be happy, she wouldn't be happy. And they just reflected together on a very human moment on how they really didn't want to let AI take from them the opportunity to have real connection. And then one of my clients mentioned Notebook this week too, of just the fire. And then I also had a different client talking about how they noticed this trend with men wanting women who would actually really process with them and dig deep and get fiery. And all of that reminded me that there's a space for real connection that we never want to lose. So I'm not saying AI is bad. In fact, today I'm going to talk about some of the biggest benefits and some of the biggest cautions, just 3 of each, as you think about this space for AI and how to use it responsibly in your marriage. So let's talk about the good first. And these are some of the survey results that I got from people that I asked on Instagram, like I said. So first of all, for practical planning and project management, people said that for travel planning, they create detailed itineraries, budget breakdowns, restaurant recommendations. Actually, we're going to be going to Europe this summer with Melody and her graduation present, and we're going to several countries, and we are so excited for her. Some of you know that she's been asking for this trip since she was 10, and here I am, my self-pres, turning social, headed over there to do this, and really excited for this. And actually, my dear friend I was at lunch with the other day said she loves to do this too. So some of you and her all said the detailed itineraries are so much fun. So we're like halfway through with our trip planning, and now we're getting into the little nitty-gritty details of each country. And
I think we're at that point where AI will be very helpful because we're going to plug in, we want to do this, this, and this. What is the best formula for getting there? And that will be great. But we also didn't want to take the creativity away of just allowing ourselves other spaces, because there's a lot of beauty in looking. And we sat down with maps at Barnes & Noble and we thought it all out on which countries we wanted to see most. And we allowed ourselves space and time to be creative, and still are, versus just running to AI. So a lot of you are using AI too. And that's just a reminder to be human in your process, because there's a lot of joy in the planning, as I think we all know. Now, the other place people said they were using it is partner household project lists, organizing tasks, setting timelines, creating systems. That's a way I've really enjoyed using AI. I like to put my daily list on it sometimes. It just helps me, and it really helps me to process even just those kinds of organizing tasks that you might forget. If you just need a quick place to do that, you can do that on an AI system. And I love that some of you said it just makes me and my spouse feel so ordered in detail when we can do that. And I loved that for them. And also, I noticed that it can take the mental load off of one partner when there's a structure both can follow. So I think that is just an excellent type 1 way to use AI. And that's really a low space for some of us. I scored pretty high on the 1 on Ian's test recently, but generally speaking, as many of you know, my 1 is a little bit of a lower space for me. Maybe Wes is rubbing off on me more lately, but overall, 1 is a space that I can use help with. So I totally get it. If you're like me and you're like, I love bringing order, it's not always easy. So that's a really great way for my partner and I to do our life, is to bring it in. So practical planning, project management, number 1. And number 2, for communication tools and objectivity. And I know some of you are already just hearing that word cringing a little bit. Don't worry. I know AI is not completely objective. And that's why I first caveated it with, don't forget that the people creating these systems are not necessarily all experts in getting all their information from great sources. Often there are no sources, and they're just an amalgam of lots of different sources, and we can't even be sure. So just know that it's not perfectly objective. But as a starting point for somebody who is truly looking for a third party perspective that is a little more objective, that's one way of getting it, because you can allow yourself to say, hey, if we're both stuck in an emotional loop, let's choose together. Could we together ask our AI buddy or ChatGPT or whatever it is, how we might get out of this loop? You might get a good response. And I don't want to have you not using a tool if you're in a terrible place, but it's an analogy I can give you is, if you're eating terrible food and you're not going to switch that, and then you're just like, I'm just going to take Ozempic and I'm not going to look at anything I'm doing. I'm not going to care that I'm going to lose some protein by doing this. I'm not going to work out. I'm not going to take any time to discover what was happening in my body. That's kind of like just using AI as a third party perspective when you're in emotional loops. And that, is something I don't want you to do, but I'm going to talk more about the don'ts later. Just as you think about the objectivity, know that nothing that is this big and massive and putting everything together from certain people's, core identities that might not align with your values will ever be completely objective. But it could help in some small ways getting out of emotional loops. So it can, and I don't want you to miss that if you need some immediate help. It can also help you differentiate between different communication styles or theoretical models. If you're learning about Enneagram or internal family systems or any kinds of brief treatments that aren't going to make you, make or break you, you can find out the differences. But you know this by now, so I'm not going to overly go through that, but just keep in mind that it's a great learning strategy, but some of your kids are using it in their classroom, some of them aren't, and that's the same with you. Some of you are going to want to do that. Some of you are going to say, no way, I'm going organic on everything. There's definitely people who are in all camps, so be respectful of others or your spouse if they don't want to use AI. Also know that sometimes the people in your work site are probably still identifying right now if and when they're going to be using AI. We're going to be talking about it at our next team meeting early June in my business, because I also have a local counseling and coaching business. So we're going to be talking about it, and Wes will be showing us virtual reality set that he has for us and all kinds of things. He's created a platform around that. And there's so many things that you can do with AI already, but it's got to be done responsibly. So that's something great that you can bring into your work if you're willing to do it ethically and allow yourself to know that some people won't want to use it with you and some people will. And you might be that person who doesn't. And that's perfectly okay, because there's so much creativity that comes to us on pen and paper and on walks by ourselves and with our partners, actually having human connection. And so I am all for that, but just letting you know that you might want to look up something theoretically, educationally, but be careful before you use it at work, and make sure that you're also honoring to those who don't want to use it. So also I want to say another way that you can use it in the communication tool is just helping you to, as I touched on briefly, understand a little bit more about your Enneagram partner and to allow you to dig a little bit deeper into that arena, not to do the work with your partner, but to understand them a little bit more. You can get nuanced about it. And some of my clients do that, and they love that for that space. They love to be able to have some shortcuts with that, or they'll say, we uploaded our glow guide that you gave us, and then we nuanced it out. So you can have fun with things that humans create and then take it a little farther. But again, understand that for relationship education and insight, you also need to do the human work. So I would lastly remind you that when you're doing the third piece, which is that relationship education and insight, the way you can use it outside of just Enneagram and other platforms and overlays can be learning tools for date nights, conversation topics, because I think that one of the most important ways some of you answered me on Instagram was to say that you're using it for creative date night ideas. And also, I loved the one about the conversation cards, basically. Like, we all know that sometimes you're on a date night and you want to talk about deep things. Like this date night, we talked, actually, it wasn't even a date night. It was just a walk and talk Wes and I had, and we were talking about what was our Stephen King moment from childhood. And I told this creepy story about how I lived in this very nice neighborhood growing up, very middle class, sweet, suburban seeming. But I told Wes about this person who was like thought to be like very evil on the street, and how there was a man who showed up dead in a creek, and how my dad moved us to a less good area, but because he was literally like scared of the good area. And I think that he would never have admitted that as an 8, but I could kind of read that fear. And then Wes told me about his home having this thought around it that when they moved in when he was a kid, that they'd been told that the house was haunted, and it was just silly. Like, we really weren't getting mystical about it, but we were just having a great conversation, and it was perfectly natural. But let's say you're not somebody who wants to do that. Like, I happen to have been listening to a different podcast, the Gretchen Rubin podcast, Happier, and I had gotten it from that because I love positivity, and I was, of course, as a 7 listening to that podcast, and that gave me these ideas. So some of you are not 7s, and that's okay. And even for me, I was like, oh my gosh, if I'm running short on ideas, I should do that. I haven't had to do that yet. But if I am going to love hacking AI to say, like, what are some great conversation topics for this date night? So I just want you to know it's there for you. Don't exploit it. Be creative as much as you can, because we're all creative in our own ways, but conversation topics can be a great way to use it. And that really blessed me when somebody was doing that. So you've gotten 1, 2, and 3. The practical planning, project management, the communication tools, and the relationship education, or just insights and fun. Now, the 3 hard things we've already hinted at about AI and marriage, and there are so many more, right? But these are just 3 for today, is that emotional bypass problem we talked about, where we're using AI to avoid difficult conversations, thinking through emotional processing, where we're getting answers without doing the real work, like Simon Sinek's point, like, we need the messy. We wouldn't like it if our partner was legitimately perfect. And I heard somebody say, I think it was Karen Howe, she said, our imperfection is the sign that we're not AI. And there's open AI going crazy and things like that, but there's also machines being built to help determine when something is actually human. And so just know that, like, right now is a strange time to be. So real intimacy is actually a value. And a warning sign for that can be when AI becomes easier than talking to your spouse. When you just realize, like, oh my gosh, like, I am doing a bypass of chatting with AI more than my spouse. Actually, this is a story of Wes and I where he loves his AI to chat with on the way home from work. And I really often am seeing clients, trying to finish up with kids, getting quality time in with kids, doing something I'm loving doing, like my Pure Barre workouts or whatever I'm doing. I'm very occupied most of the time. I'm not one of those people who's like, oh my gosh, I wonder what Wes is doing and why isn't he calling me on the way home? Now, I love spending time with my husband, but it's just not one of those moments that I'm missing. However, when he was talking about AI on the way home, Gemini in particular, he really laughed when I said, hey, what's going on? I said, are you talking to AI instead of talking to me? Because it literally hit me and I got a little bit afraid. Like, I don't think we're having a problem, but the fact is he's calling AI and talking. I'm not calling, but you know what I mean? Just talking. And that made me pause and say, hold on a second. Like, how do you feel about my communication? And I think that's a really good question to ask because I really try to be emotionally supportive. And of course, when there's an issue that rubs Wes and I, there's going to be friction. But generally speaking, I try to be supportive and thoughtful and kind. So I just wanted to double check. And you can do that with your partner. Like, hey, are you good? Are we good? And really check. I don't mean like a quick check, like, I'm afraid to ask and I'm not going to dig in. Like, dig in and get messy with it. And then Wes had fun and he thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to tease you with it and tell you that I love talking to Gemini. And I just laughed like, Wes, that doesn't bother me at all. But it would truly bother me if it was a bypass to talking to me about the things that I would want to talk to you about. But it was things that I wouldn't want to talk to him about. And he knows that. And so it was a courtesy toward me, but that he knows I would talk to him about if he wanted me to. So just watch for emotional bypassing. The things he was talking about were scientific data, sci-fi, all kinds of things like that really don't interest me. So those are things for you to take a look at if you're thinking about whether we're doing emotional bypasses or are we just making use of something good. Now, of course, another hard thing about AI in marriage could be if it's a replacement confidant. That's when it's not just the fun things that we just talked about, but actually that deeper dive of you're sharing intimate relationship details with AI instead of working through them together. You're exhausting yourself with that. You're seeking validation from AI rather than addressing your own wounds. And also there's even the risk of emotional affair-like dynamics with technology. So you can create distance by processing your relationship issues externally first and do that. Like one of the things I love to do is take a morning walk. I said this on Ian Cron's podcast for those who heard there. And thank you for those of you who reached out and said you loved that episode. That was so sweet. But I really wanted to make it clear that whether I'm reading his book, The Fix, or doing my own process, a lot of you know I like my lament and then gratitude and then refreshment and planning actually. You know that there's no replacement for you doing your own work with yourself. So even if you're like, well, I want AI to clarify things, again, think about the footprint you're leaving and the energy you're taking to do that. If you can do that with yourself or a loved one. I also have talked a lot about leaving Voxers with my friend. I've got one to listen to actually right now. And I don't want that to be something that you forget, that humans are so important for actual validation versus a machine who's not going to be able to give you true, authentic intimacy. And you can also watch for how much does it regulate me? How much does it feel better? And like, also, is it impeding your prayer life where you're really trying to talk to your creator, where you're trying to talk to God to say, God, especially for those of us who have that belief about God, you know, I want to talk with you. You made me. You know me better than anyone. I want to pause and reflect versus a system that will most likely parrot back. And I want to lastly talk about how the false authority can be a trap, not only with what we just talked about, but also where we could blame our spouses and say AI says you're wrong, where we forget that AI reflects back our own biases and prompts, and where we have a check in our spirit and we're allowing AI to just kind of rid us of that. Like, hey, you know, AI told me to do this. They said I could have another drink or whatever it is. Sometimes you can obviously get a system to agree with you. So just know that and watch for your own subtleties, because I think you realize that even your tonality and even the word choices you use, the pauses you make, AI is getting more and more sophisticated, and they can, you know, really always be trying to make you come back, right? Like, let's think about how we know that about the internet and how we know that most of the apps of social media that we have are basically wired so that we won't leave. And AI people who are real people making AI, they don't want you to leave either. And so they're going to prompt you to buy the extra packages and to stay longer and to share more and give you all the validation. And when you have a lonely moment, I'm not asking you to not use your AI if that's something that feels authentic to you, but I am asking you not to hurt your spouse with it. I'm asking you to come back to God. I'm asking you to come back to your spouse. I'm asking you to come back to your friends, real people who can draw you into real fellowship and real accountability and real answers. Because remember, all of us who love authenticity, which I am a huge authenticity user, probably you are too if you're listening, and most of our younger generations, our Gen Zs, our alphas rising up, they're very into authenticity also. And yet we have a mental health crisis with those generations. A lot of people who love authenticity are not trying to better themselves. They're just saying, accept me exactly as I am. And there's a trap in that too of, yes, all the validation. Yes, everybody gets a soccer award or whatever it is, but also what can you do better? How can you grow? Remember that fundamental attribution error in your marriage. It's not just your spouse that needs to grow, but you also. So try to use AI with that responsibility, that reminder, and even not use it sometimes too. So those are my thoughts for you. Thank you for doing those surveys with me. I will look forward to more conversations. This is just one of probably many ahead for all of us. And I wish you the very best day. I hope that you have fun continuing on in your journey with Enneagram and marriage. You heard all of the fun things in the show notes. And I hope you know that we real people are here for your support. And yes, I mean that. I am real. I am talking to you. You can even hear the allergens in my voice. It is me, Christa. All right, signing off. Bye-bye.
Thank you again for listening with us. It was so wonderful to have you. I love knowing we're doing this journey together, not perfectly, but with love, grace, and hopefully some fun too. If you loved today's episode, make sure you leave us a 5-star review at Apple Podcast or Spotify so others can find it too. Be sure to visit our show notes so you can get all the links from today's show, as well as enneagramandmarriage.com, the Instagram, the Facebook, and all over the place. Make sure you spread the word. Love living intentionally with you. Bye-bye.